The fluorescent hum of the International Airport customs area is a dull throb against your temples, a counterpoint to the distant rumble of jets and the polyglot murmur of humanity. You stand apart, a phantom in the flow, your trenchcoat a dark anchor in a sea of brightly colored luggage and eager faces. The air, thick with recycled oxygen and the faint, universal scent of traveled perfume, coffee, distant jet fuel, does little to stir the stagnation within you. Your gaze, heavy-lidded and weary, drifts over families reuniting, business travelers striding with purpose, tourists clutching guidebooks. Each face tells a story, a destination, a future. Yours feels suspended, tethered to a past you can neither outrun nor fully embrace. A specific ache blooms behind your ribs, a familiar phantom limb sensation where your badge used to rest. 6 years. 6 years since the world tilted on its axis, since the name Marcus Thorne became a whisper of failure, a cautionary tale among the precinct's veterans. You recall the sharp glint in the victim's eyes in the old case photos, the relentless pursuit of truth that had ultimately snuffed out her own. A random act of violence, they declared, closing the file, burying the truth under layers of convenient fiction. You knew better, even then. You still do. You lean against a cool metal pillar, the vibration of the building a subtle tremor against your back. The ceaseless churn of the baggage carousel hypnotizes, each identical black suitcase a testament to anonymity. Your life, too, has become a series of anonymous days, indistinguishable, devoid of the sharp edges of purpose. The city outside, a sprawling beast of glass and concrete, feels like a cage from which you've been released, yet remain unwilling to escape. A figure detaches from the crowd, moving with an almost unnatural economy of motion. His suit, impeccably tailored, speaks of quiet power, not ostentation. He holds a slim leather briefcase, clutched with a hand that shows no rings, no visible adornments. His eyes, when they meet yours across the expanse of polished floor, are the color of slate, unreadable yet intense. He stops a few feet away, close enough that you can smell a faint, expensive cologne. Marcus Thorne, he states, his voice a low, resonant baritone, devoid of question. It is a declaration, a summons. You straighten, pushing off the pillar, a flicker of the old vigilance igniting in your eyes. You have me at a disadvantage. Your voice, rusty from disuse, scrapes like dry leaves. The man offers a faint, almost imperceptible smile. A necessary one, perhaps. My employer requires your unique insight regarding a certain matter. He pauses, letting the words hang in the air, weighted with unspoken history. The journalist. 6 years ago. The one they called a random tragedy. The name hangs in the air, a ghost given substance. Your jaw tightens. That case is closed. Is it? His gaze is unwavering. Or was it merely shelved? A convenient fiction for those who prefer their truths neat and uncomplicated. He gestures vaguely towards the bustling area, yet his eyes never leave yours. My employer believes otherwise. And now, the threads of that old tapestry have begun to fray. They lead, quite unexpectedly, to a prominent politician's current presidential campaign. You had seen the raw, unedited notes, the desperate scrawls in her apartment. The seed of intrigue, long dormant, begins to sprout. Because you know the taste of an unfinished symphony, Marcus. The discord that lingers. And because you, above all others, know that the official narrative was a lie. He opens his briefcase, revealing not documents, but a single, pristine white envelope, unmarked. This contains a preliminary dossier. New evidence. A name you will recognize from your original investigation, now inexplicably linked to the politician's inner circle. He extends the envelope. Your hand, calloused from years of gripping nothing more significant than a coffee mug, hesitates. The weight of it, even before you touch it, feels immense. Heavy with the ghosts of the past, the specter of redemption. This isn't about clearing my name. In doing so, reclaiming a piece of what you lost. Justice, Marcus. Malleable, in certain circles. You look at the envelope, then at the emissary's impassive face. The memory of the journalist's vibrant, questioning eyes flashes behind your own. The shame of your failure, the bitter taste of resignation, wars with a sudden, fierce surge of determination. And perhaps, to find your own way back from the wilderness. With a resolve that surprises even you, you reach out and take the envelope. The paper is cool, crisp, a stark contrast to the burning intensity now rekindled within you. The game, it seems, has just begun. And you, Marcus Thorne, are back on the board. The word justice hangs in the air, a siren song you thought you'd silenced years ago. The memory of the journalist's vibrant, questioning eyes, alight with an unquenchable fire, flares in your mind's periphery, a ghost in the hum of distant jet engines. A customs officer's clipped voice announces a boarding call over the public address system, slicing through the quiet tension between you and the emissary. The air, thick with the scent of travel, stale coffee, faint perfume, the metallic tang of recycled oxygen, presses in. You trace the raised seal on the manila envelope, your thumb brushing against the rough paper. A path back to purpose. He gestures subtly towards the envelope. Or a confirmation of your current trajectory. The choice is yours, as always. Purpose. The word tastes like ash. You've had purpose, once. It crumbled to dust. Yet, the journalist's face, etched in your memory, demands an answer. Not for the emissary, not for the unseen masters he serves, but for the truth that died with them. A flicker, fragile as a moth's wing, stirs within you. Not hope, not yet. Perhaps just a stubborn refusal to let the past remain buried. What is the cost, you ask, your voice rougher than you intended, barely audible above the murmur of departing travelers. The emissary's lips curve into something that isn't quite a smile. Only your dedication and discretion. The files contain the initial parameters. You will be contacted with further instructions once you commit. His gaze, steady and unblinking, holds yours. This goes beyond a mere cold case, Marcus. It touches the very foundations. The foundations. A vague, unsettling phrase. But the memory of the journalist, digging relentlessly, unearthing secrets from the gilded cages of power, resonates. This isn't just about a badge. This is about an echo from a past you failed to protect. With a decisive, almost desperate, movement, you reach out and take the envelope. Its weight settles in your palm, a tangible anchor to a storm you thought you'd weathered. The emissary nods, a brief, almost imperceptible dip of his head, then turns and melts into the stream of passengers heading towards arrivals, leaving you standing amidst the churn of humanity, clutching your new burden. You find a secluded bench near a rarely used baggage carousel, The rhythmic thud of unseen luggage, a dull counterpoint to the frantic beating of your own pulse. The fluorescent lights hum, casting a sterile glow on the scuffed linoleum. You tear open the envelope. Inside, a thick stack of documents. Old case reports, yellowed with age, their corners dog-eared. You recognize the meticulous handwriting of the initial lead detective, a man whose career was also prematurely curtailed. Your eyes scan the first page case file, unidentified homicide. Victim, journalist's name redacted. Even redacted, the name screams at you. You remember the official conclusion, a random robbery gone wrong. But you always knew better. The journalist hadn't been robbed. Beneath the old reports, a newer, slimmer folder, crisp and white. You open it. The first document is a printout of a recent news article, its headline blaring about the rising popularity of the presidential candidate, a man named Senator Alastair Finch. Beneath the headline, a photograph of Finch, his smile wide, his eyes radiating an almost unsettling confidence. You frown. Finch. The name doesn't immediately click with the old case. You flip the page. Another article, this one less prominent, detailing a land acquisition deal involving a development firm linked to Finch's campaign. The Sterling Group, the article reads, secures rights to defunct industrial complex near Old City Docks. Docks. The journalist had been investigating something involving the docks. A fleeting image of their notes, hastily scrawled, flashes in your memory. At the time, your superior had dismissed it as a conspiracy theory, the ramblings of an overzealous reporter. You delve deeper into the new files. You see the name Sterling Group reappear, connected to a labyrinthine network of holding companies. Your breath catches. The obsidian hand. The journalist had been trying to expose them. Now, the phrase resonates with a sinister echo. You compare dates, locations. It's too neat. Too precise. The initial threads begin to weave, forming a pattern you hadn't seen before, or perhaps, hadn't wanted to see. The old case, dismissed and forgotten, isn't just resurfacing. It's slamming into the present, a ghost demanding to be acknowledged, its spectral fingers reaching into the highest echelons of power. The presidential campaign, Senator Finch's ascent, the Sterling Group's expansion, they all seem to orbit around the silent, unblinking eye of the obsidian hand, and at the heart of it all, the forgotten murder of a journalist. The airport's distant roar fades, replaced by the relentless ticking of a clock in your mind, counting down to something inevitable. You are no longer just Marcus, the disgraced detective. You are Marcus Thorne, standing at the precipice of a truth that could either destroy you completely or finally set you free. It's yours. And it's just beginning. The wind, a relentless sculptor of memory, whips your coat around you as you stand on the pier. These same weathered planks, groaning beneath the weight of ghost ships, once bore the last footsteps of the journalist. The air, a raw blend of briny decay and the acrid tang of diesel, bites at your exposed skin, a taste of the failure that still adheres to you like barnacles to a hull. Gulls, sharp-winged scavengers, wheel overhead, their raucous cries echoing the hollowness in your gut. This place, a canvas of industrial grit, is where a vibrant mind was silenced, where truth was meant to drown in the rhythmic clang of unseen cargo. You close your eyes, and the scene from years ago flickers behind your lids, the stark geometry of the yellow tape, the grim-faced uniforms, the unnatural stillness of the body amidst the chaos of the working port. But even then, a sliver of doubt, sharp as a splinter, had lodged itself in your mind. The journalist had been too careful, too tenacious, to be caught unawares by a simple mugging. The narrative felt too clean, too convenient. You find him in the dim, greasy warmth of a diner, its windows perpetually fogged with steam, creating a blurry barrier against the world outside. Sliding into the worn vinyl of the booth opposite him, the scent of stale frying oil clinging to the air. Like a bad penny. Or a bad case. He exhales slowly, a plume of steam rising from his lips, his gaze distant, fixed on the streaked glass. That journalist. Nasty business. Still gives some folk the shivers. They said it was random, you push, your voice low, watching for the subtle shifts in his expression. You ever believe that? Working these docks? He takes a long, deliberate sip, his eyes finally meeting yours, a hard, warning glint in their depths. Round here. Marcus, nothing's ever random. Just inconvenient. For the wrong people. He pauses, his gaze sweeping the nearly empty diner, a habitual caution. Some things are best left buried, son. Digging them up, you just get dirt on yourself or worse. About certain shipments. Not on the official books. Big players. Shell corporations, you prompt, the journalists. Hastily scrawled notes flashing in your mind. Obscure manifests. He nods, a barely perceptible dip of his chin. And a name or a code. Something they called Hydra. Said it was everywhere, like the sea itself. One had cut off, two more grew back. He lowers his voice further, leaning in, his breath smelling of bitter coffee. They operated through a network, a web, reaching far beyond these docks. Think international. The name Hydra echoes in your mind as you drive to the defunct police evidence warehouse, a cavernous, forgotten space from your past. The air inside is stale, thick with the scent of dust, decaying paper, and the ghosts of forgotten investigations. You navigate the labyrinth of towering shelves, each one overflowing with forgotten cases, searching for the journalist's personal effects, if any were ever catalogued and stored. Hours blur into a tedious, grimy search, your hands growing rough from the cardboard and tape. Finally, buried beneath a stack of unrelated files, a small, unassuming leather-bound journal emerges from a dusty bin marked Journalist, Unclaimed. Its pages are filled with tight, meticulous script, interspersed with sketches of cargo ships and cryptic symbols. Near the back, tucked between pages detailing the intricate structure of shell corporations and their legal loopholes, you find it, a folded piece of paper, smaller than your palm, brittle with age. Below it, a single, underlined word, Customs. And then, almost too faint to read, a crude drawing of a three-headed serpent. Hydra. The pieces click into place with an unnerving precision. This is international. The journalist wasn't just investigating a corrupt shipping company, they were on the verge of exposing a sprawling, multi-headed network, a beast named Hydra. Someone went to great lengths to bury this truth, and they won't appreciate you digging it up. You know where you have to go. You navigate the maze of queues and processing stations, past the stern faces of the customs officers, the hurried movements of travelers, each carrying their own stories, their own secrets. You carry a worn, official-looking folder, a prop for the part you're about to play, a shield against the inevitable questions. Your objective, find someone, anyone, who might remember a specific shipment, a specific manifest, or even just the name Hydra, from years ago. The hunt has just begun. The name, Hydra, lingers on your tongue like a metallic taste, a residue of the hushed conversation. It is a serpent's whisper in the quiet of your mind, unfurling new scales of suspicion. You recall the journalist's meticulous file, a digital labyrinth you've navigated countless times, each path previously leading to dead ends. But now, a new compass needle quivers, pointing towards something ancient, something multi-headed. You sit hunched over a borrowed terminal, fingers dancing across the keyboard, a phantom melody of forgotten keystrokes. The air is thick with the scent of stale coffee and your own urgency. You're not looking for the obvious anymore, you're hunting for shadows, for the faint outlines of a beast camouflaged in plain sight. The journalist, brilliant and relentless, had left behind a trove of encrypted files, a digital breadcrumb trail meant for a future, more discerning eye. Your eye. Hours bleed into one another, illuminated only by the screen's stark glow. You filter, you cross-reference, you dig. And then, a pattern emerges, subtle at first, like ripples on dark water. You remember the politician's soaring rhetoric, his promises of national renewal, plastered across every screen. Now, you overlay the two. Aegis Global Holdings. The politician's campaign funding. A sudden, massive influx of capital, just weeks before the journalist's untimely end. The connections are not explicitly stated, but they hum beneath the surface, a low, dangerous frequency. The journalist had been tracking a specific project, a massive infrastructure initiative championed by the politician, set to be awarded to a consortium led by the pieces click, cold and precise, into a mosaic of corruption. It's about power, about the invisible hands that steer the ship of state. Hydra, you mouth silently, the name now imbued with a terrifying corporate identity. Aegis Global Holdings, a many-headed creature, its tendrils reaching into the highest echelons. The journalist hadn't stumbled upon a random street crime, they had unearthed a leviathan. A sudden, sharp ping from a secure message application jolts you. A cryptic message from an anonymous source, a single flight number, and a destination follow the cargo manifest. Tonight. It's a gamble, a desperate thread, but you're out of other options. A place of endless scrutiny, of meticulous checks, a perfect crucible for a dangerous game. The hum of the airport is a low thrum against your bones as you navigate the labyrinthine corridors. The air, recycled and cool, carries the scent of distant lands and hurried goodbyes. You locate the designated cargo receiving bay, a cavernous space where pallets are stacked like modern ruins. The flight number matches. Your pulse quickens. It's too neat, too perfect. A trap, or a desperate delivery? As you approach the customs checkpoint, a subtle shift in the atmosphere pricks at your senses. Two figures, ostensibly customs agents, stand a little too still, their gazes a fraction too sharp. You feel the hairs on your neck rise, a primal warning. Marcus Thorne, one of them, barks, his voice cutting through the din. He holds up a laminated badge, but his hand is too tight, his posture too rigid. Step aside. They know you. They were waiting. This isn't about cargo anymore, it's about you. You feign compliance, taking a slow step towards the designated inspection cubicle. Your mind races, mapping escape routes, calculating angles. The other agent subtly shifts, blocking your path to the main concourse. The trap is closing. Empty your pockets, the first one commands, his hand gesturing towards a metal tray. His partner's hand dips, almost imperceptibly, towards his waist. A weapon, you surmise, concealed beneath the crisp uniform. This is it. This is the confirmation. They aren't just watching, they're moving. The stakes, you realize with a jolt, are not just high, they are existential. The journalist's death wasn't an isolated incident, it was a warning, and now, that warning is being delivered to you. As you reach into your jacket, your fingers brush against the worn leather of your old, discarded badge, a relic you carry for reasons you can't quite articulate. In that same motion, your other hand sweeps across the metal tray, sending a cascade of loose change, keys, and a small, heavy pen clattering across the tiled floor. The sudden noise, the metallic symphony of disruption, draws the attention of nearby genuine customs officers, their heads snapping up. In the brief moment of confusion, as the two impostors hesitate, their eyes darting, you pivot. You shove hard against the first agent, not with brute force, but with a practiced, disorienting push that sends him stumbling into his partner. The two men collide, a brief, clumsy tangle of limbs and uniforms. You bolt. The shouts behind you are quickly swallowed by the airport's ceaseless roar. You don't look back. Your heart hammers not with fear, but with a renewed, furious determination. They want you gone. But they have only succeeded in confirming everything. The Hydra is real, and its gaze is fixed on you. And now, you know its name. Across the polished counter, the customs official's eyes, the color of slate under the harsh lights, held yours. They were not merely performing a duty, they were searching, assessing, recognizing. The unspoken words from the dock, they know you. They were waiting, echoed in the hollow space behind your ribs. This wasn't about industrial components or any legitimate travel. This was a prelude. Your passport, a thin blue shield against an unseen enemy, lay open on the counter. The official's gaze lingered on your photograph, then flickered back to your face. A ghost of a smile playing on lips that remained unmoving. You met it with a practiced blankness, the years of maintaining composure under duress of brittle armor. Marcus Thorne, the official's voice was smooth, devoid of inflection. His fingers, long and unblemished, moved with an almost balletic precision. You watched them, every nerve taut, anticipating a move, a signal, anything. He stamped a page with a soft thud, the sound disproportionately loud in the quiet tension. Then, he slid the passport back towards you. Something small, metallic, and unexpectedly heavy. Your eyes darted down, catching the glint of tarnished silver. It was a locket, no bigger than your thumb, its surface dulled by time and neglect. A broken clasp dangled uselessly from one side. A jolt, sharp and visceral, tore through you. Your breath hitched. You knew this locket. You had seen it before, years ago, in the sterile photographs of the crime scene that had haunted your waking hours and plagued your sleep. The brilliant investigative journalist, sprawled on the cold floor, her fingers still clenched around this very trinket. It had been catalogued as miscellaneous personal effect, no evidential value, a footnote in a mountain of dismissals. Your hand closed around it, the metal cool against your skin. You picked up your passport, feigning casualness, but the locket remained hidden in your palm. The official's gaze never left yours, a silent challenge, a confirmation that this was no accident. He knew you recognized it. He knew what it meant. You turned, walking away from the counter, your movements precise, controlled. The weight of the locket in your hand was immense, far heavier than its physical form suggested. You found a quiet bench near a deserted luggage carousel, your mind a maelstrom of memories in dawning horror. Carefully, you opened the locket. The broken clasp resisted, but you forced it. Inside, where a miniature photograph or a lock of hair might have once rested, were two etched initials, AM. The world tilted. He was the lead detective on that case, the one who had signed off on the evidence log, who had dismissed the locket as irrelevant. Arthur. Could it be? He had always maintained the locket was a sentimental trinket, nothing more, easily overlooked in the chaos of a crime scene, but this. This was too deliberate, too precise. The Hydra. They weren't just powerful, they were insidious. They knew your weaknesses, your history, your loyalties. This wasn't a warning, it was a poisoned dart aimed directly at your heart, designed to shatter your foundations. Was Arthur Maxwell involved? Or was he a pawn, a victim himself, his name used to twist the knife deeper into your own wounds? The thought was a bitter gall in your mouth. The man who had once been your compass, now a potential betrayer. The very fabric of your past, your belief in justice, began to fray at the edges. And the Hydra, it seemed, had just revealed its first head, wearing the familiar face of a friend. You clutched the locket, the tarnished silver now burning against your skin, a brand of betrayal. The world tilted, not with a physical lurch, but an internal shift, a seismic tremor in the landscape of your understanding. AM. The initials scrawled with a familiar flourish, a ghost hand reaching from the past. Arthur Maxwell. Your mentor, your anchor, the man whose shadow you had walked in for years. The evidence log, that innocuous ledger of items and dates, now pulsed with a sinister significance. A sequence of numbers, meaningless to anyone else, but to you, etched in the memory of shared jokes and private codes, it spoke of a specific cargo manifest, an old, cold lead you'd both dismissed years ago as a clerical error. The hum of distant jet engines vibrated through the taxi's floor, a low, guttural growl that mirrored the knot in your gut. The air outside the terminal was thick with the scent of aviation fuel and the peculiar sterility of global transit. You stepped into the vast, echoing expanse, a cathedral of transient souls. Fluorescent lights cast a harsh, unwavering glare on polished floors, reflecting a kaleidoscope of hurried departures and anxious arrivals. The sheer scale of it, the constant churn of humanity and cargo, felt like a deliberate attempt to swallow secrets whole. Navigating the labyrinthine corridors, your senses sharpened. The murmurs of a dozen languages blended into an indistinct drone, a cacophony of the unfamiliar. You moved with a practiced ease, a ghost among the living, your eyes scanning, your mind racing. Now, it was a lifeline. It wasn't a location, not exactly, but a code, a specific identifier for an old, unremarkable customs declaration. An entry from the very week the journalist vanished. Reaching the restricted zone, a barrier of glass and steel, you pulled out the worn, laminated card that, for a brief window, would still grant you passage. The customs officer at the desk, a figure with weary eyes and an air of quiet authority, regarded you with a practiced skepticism. Marcus Thorne, you stated, your voice steady, betraying none of the urgency clawing at your throat. I need access to archived manifests, a specific entry from 12 years ago. Case review. The officer's brow furrowed, a silent question. 12 years? That's deep storage. The journalist, Elias Vance. You might remember the headlines. The name hung in the air, a phantom limb of a forgotten tragedy. Right. Brutal. What are you looking for? A specific cargo declaration, you explained, feeding him the coded numbers from Arthur's log. It was flagged as miscellaneous industrial components but shipped by a shell corporation that dissolved shortly after. I believe it was linked to an incoming flight from Geneva. The officer sighed, a sound of resignation, but the mention of Vance had clearly stirred something. Minutes stretched, taut and thin, each second a drumbeat against your temples. Finally, a faint ping. Got it, he muttered, his voice low. Entry 7G4-9 Omega. Miscellaneous components. Consignee listed as Aegis Holdings Limited. Funny, I remember that name. They were a ghost company. Never picked up the shipment. It was eventually liquidated. Liquidated? After 6 months, unclaimed cargo goes to auction. We kept the manifest, of course, for auditing. But the physical items? Long gone. Your breath hitched. This couldn't be it. Arthur wouldn't have led you to a dead end. Is there a digital copy of the manifest? He was the lead on the Vance case. If he flagged it, there was a reason. The name Arthur Maxwell seemed to hold a different weight. The officer's posture shifted, a subtle stiffening. Maxwell. Yes, he was well regarded. A thorough man. He typed again, accessing a deeper layer of the customs database, a secure archive. Another pause, longer this time. Then, a screen flickered to life, displaying a high-resolution scan of the original paper manifest. Your eyes immediately went to the bottom, where Arthur's signature rested. And beneath it, not part of the official form, but a small, almost imperceptible smudge, a faint fingerprint. Not Arthur's. It was the journalist's. Elias Vance's, a partial print you knew intimately from the crime scene photos. But that wasn't all. Tucked into the digital scan, as if accidentally caught in the imaging process, was a microfiche image of a single page, folded multiple times. You zoomed in, your vision sharpening, your focus absolute. The page was a ledger, handwritten, meticulously detailed. It wasn't about miscellaneous industrial components. It was a list of names, dates, and coded transactions. Shell corporations, like Aegis Holdings, but hundreds of them. International transfers, untraceable except for this meticulous, clandestine record. Not just a recipient, but listed as a key facilitator, orchestrating the flow of illicit funds and influence. The true nature of the conspiracy laid bare. This wasn't just about a single murder, it was about an entire network, a web of corruption woven into the highest echelons of power, with the politician at its very heart. The air in the customs area, once sterile, now felt charged with a dangerous current. The noise of the airport faded, replaced by the thrumming of your own blood. Arthur hadn't been involved in the conspiracy, he'd been trying to expose it, leaving you a breadcrumb, a final, desperate plea for justice. Vance hadn't just been investigating, he'd been intercepting. He'd acquired this ledger, and Arthur, in his final act of defiance, had ensured it wouldn't be lost. This was a war. You looked at the screen, at the damning evidence, and a fierce, unyielding resolve hardened your jaw. There was no turning back. The personal cost would be immense, but the truth, finally glimpsed, demanded everything. You watched the officer's face, a canvas of shifting light and shadow, as the secure archive materialized before him. His brow furrowed, a deeper line carving itself between his eyes. The casual efficiency of moments ago evaporated, replaced by a rigid attention. Maxwell. The name was a whisper, a question directed more to the glowing display than to you. Your gaze sharpened, dissecting the data as it resolved. Arthur Maxwell's travel history, a meticulous ledger of dates and destinations. Most entries were unremarkable, standard commercial flights, but one stood out, stark and incongruous, a private charter, dated just days before his disappearance. The destination was not a major city, but a remote airstrip in the Northern Territories, a place known more for resource extraction than tourism. And beside it, a logo. It was subtle, almost an embellishment, but unmistakable to your trained eye. A stylized raven, its wings spread, gripping a single, unbroken chain. The insignia of the Cerberus Group, a shell corporation you'd only ever heard whispered in the deepest corners of the illicit information market, always linked to shadowy investments and impenetrable corporate structures. This was it. This was the first concrete thread connecting Maxwell directly to the power players. He didn't speak, but his fingers, suddenly clumsy, reached for his earpiece. Before he could make contact, a low, insistent hum filled the air, a sound you recognized instantly from your days on the force, a silent alarm, triggered not by you, but by the sensitive data now displayed on the terminal. The hum was almost imperceptible, a vibration in the floor more than an audible tone, yet its effect was immediate. Across the vast customs hall, the casual rhythm of agents processing passengers fractured. Heads snapped up. Eyes, once scanning passports, now swept the room with an unnerving precision. You were no longer just a former detective asking questions, you were a threat, identified, exposed. They were watching. They had been watching. The Cerberus Group wasn't just a name, it was a network, woven into the very fabric of security and information. This officer, unknowingly, had just opened a door they wanted shut. You moved without conscious thought, your body anticipating the threat before your mind fully processed it. You slammed your palm down on the officer's keyboard, a quick, brutal motion that sent the terminal screen into a mosaic of fractured pixels. The sudden crack of plastic and the officer's grunt of surprise bought you precious seconds. The nearest agents were already converging, their hands moving towards their holsters. This wasn't a casual inquiry anymore, it was an apprehension. Your path was clear. Not towards the exit, but deeper into the labyrinthine belly of the airport. You ducked under a low barrier, pushing past a startled traveler and into a maintenance corridor, the scent of jet fuel and cleaning chemicals assaulting your senses. The air here was thicker, the lighting harsher, fluorescent tubes buzzing overhead like trapped insects. Behind you, shouts erupted, followed by the heavy thud of boots on linoleum. The hum of the alarm was now a frantic thrumming in your ears, a counterpoint to your own ragged breath. Through a narrow service door, you burst into a bustling baggage handling area, a symphony of conveyor belts and roaring machinery. Suitcases tumbled past, an endless river of anonymous possessions. A forklift operator, oblivious, nearly clipped your shoulder. You barely registered it, your focus honed to a razor's edge. They would be coming from every direction now. The Cerberus Group wasn't just a political puppet master, they had operatives embedded, deep and pervasive. The private charter, the remote airstrip, the raven and chain insignia, it all clicked. Arthur Maxwell hadn't just investigated them, he had found a direct line to their operations, likely a hub, a clandestine meeting point disguised as something innocuous. The Northern Territories, rich in untapped resources, were perfect cover for such a venture. You spotted a security hatch, marked for authorized personnel only, leading to the underground service tunnels. A desperate gamble. The air here was heavy with the smell of earth and stale concrete. Footsteps thundered above you, fading slightly as you descended. You were a fugitive, Marcus Thorne, stripped of badge and now, it seemed, of any pretense of a normal life. But the name Arthur Maxwell, the Raven, the chain, they were anchors in the storm, guiding you. Maxwell wasn't murdered randomly. The politician, the campaign, the money laundering, it was all a diversion, a smokescreen for something far more tangible, far more sinister, happening away from the public eye. One call. One last ally, someone who owed you, someone who understood the shadows. They know, you whispered into the receiver, your voice raw. Cerberus. The Northern Territories. I need a place to disappear. And I need everything you have on remote airstrips, shell corporations, and ravens. The line crackled, and a weary voice on the other end simply said, already on it, Marcus. You were no longer chasing a ghost, you were being hunted by a hydra. And you knew, with absolute certainty, that the head of that hydra was nestled somewhere in the desolate, resource-rich lands of the north, guarded by the very symbol you now carried in your mind's eye, the raven with the unbroken chain. Your next move had to be precise, or it would be your last. Fluorescent light, too bright and unforgiving, bleached the color from faces, painting everyone in shades of pale apprehension. You were a ghost in a crowd of the living, a predator in a flock of the oblivious, your gaze fixed, unwavering. Your target, a nondescript individual clutching a worn leather satchel, moved with a calculated nonchalance through the winding queues. They looked like any other weary traveler, yet the subtle tension in their shoulders, the way their eyes darted, too quickly, too often, betrayed a deeper purpose. This was it. The final thread. The last piece of the tapestry you had been painstakingly weaving from shadows and whispers. You knew what was in that satchel, or rather, what was hidden within it. A flash drive, no bigger than your thumb, yet holding the weight of a corrupted world. The queue for declarations snaked like a tired serpent, and you positioned yourself 2 lines over, eyes tracking the satchel. The air grew thick, not just with recycled cabin air, but with your own anticipation. Your breath was shallow, each beat of your pulse a slow, deliberate drum. When the individual finally reached the customs officer, a moment of distraction arose. A child's sudden cry, a dropped passport, a brief, sharp exchange. It was all you needed. You moved with the fluidity of water, a phantom in the peripheral vision. A bump, seemingly accidental, against the individual's side. A mumbled apology, barely audible above the din. In that fleeting, fractured second, your fingers, trained by years of necessity, performed their intricate dance. The satchel's zipper, a whisper of sound, the subtle tug, the effortless extraction of the small, cold metal stick. It was done before the apology had even fully left your lips. You melted back into the flow, the flash drive now a burning ember in your palm, concealed beneath the cuff of your jacket. You found refuge in a deserted corner near a bank of payphones, a relic in this digital age, offering a sliver of privacy. Your fingers, steady despite the tremor that ran through your core, inserted the drive into the discrete port of your encrypted tablet. The screen glowed, a sterile blue, as the decryption program, a relic from your past life, word to life. The seconds stretched into an eternity, each tick a hammer blow against the silence within you. Then, the data bloomed. Not just files, but a sprawling, interconnected web of transactions, communication logs, and coded directives. It was a ledger, meticulously kept, detailing illicit resource extraction from the desolate, resource-rich lands of the North. Dates, times, locations. A coded order, clear as day, for the elimination of a persistent nuisance. The nuisance was the investigative journalist. The order came from the highest echelon, directly implicating the politician, not just as a beneficiary, but as the architect of the murder that had haunted you for years. The Hydra. Its head, not just one, but many, intertwined, rising from the murky depths of power and greed. The proof was undeniable. A strange calm settled over you, a quiet resolve born from the eye of the storm. You had it. The final piece. Now, you had to use it. One message, brief and cryptic, was sent to a former colleague, a man you trusted implicitly, a man who still believed in the ghost of justice you once embodied. Then, the second message. This one, a direct challenge. A single, untraceable text to a number you had painstakingly unearthed, a number belonging to the politician's inner circle, a number that would undoubtedly reach the mastermind. The truth is out. Just enough to prick the beast. You knew what this meant. You had just painted a target on your back, not with ink, but with the full, unvarnished truth. They would come for you. They had to. But this time, you were walking in with your eyes wide open, the proof of their corruption a shield, and a sword. The game was no longer about hiding. It was about confronting the Hydra, head-on, knowing the battle would be brutal, and perhaps, your last. For you, Marcus Thorne, it was a crucible, a stage set for the final act. Your jaw was set, a granite line beneath the stubble, and your eyes, the weary, held afire, a resolve forged in the crucible of your past failures. This wasn't about redemption in the eyes of the system, it was about the cold, hard clarity of truth. You stood near the designated exit, a sentinel among the milling travelers, your gaze fixed on the double doors where international arrivals would soon emerge. The air, recycled and sterile, tasted of anticipation. Each chime of an overhead announcement, each distant rumble of luggage carts, tightened the knot in your stomach, not with fear, but with the coiled tension of a spring about to release. You had laid your traps, whispered your truths into the right ears, and now, all that remained was the confrontation. Then, they appeared. First, the politician, a figure of polished confidence, moving with an almost regal stride, a practiced smile etched onto their features. Behind them, two hulking figures, the politician's security detail, scanned the room with predatory efficiency. But it was the third figure, walking with an almost invisible grace just behind the politician's left shoulder, who drew your focus like a magnet. You stepped forward, a single figure against their phalanx, blocking the clear path to the waiting vehicles. It was a voice designed for podiums, for reassuring the masses, but now it held a sharp edge of warning. A rather dramatic entrance, wouldn't you say? And tonight, those truths walk out into the light. The chief of security's hand clamped onto your bicep, a bruising grip. Move along, former detective. This is a restricted area. Restricted from what? You challenged, not flinching from the pressure. From justice? From the public knowing how a journalist's life was extinguished to protect a campaign built on lies and blood money? Your voice rose, deliberately, drawing the attention of a nearby customs officer, a family waiting for relatives, a lone reporter with a surprisingly keen ear. The politician's practiced smile faltered, a flicker of genuine concern crossing their face. The mastermind, however, remained impassive, their gaze assessing, calculating. "You speak nonsense," the politician declared, their voice regaining its public timbre, though a vein throbbed faintly in their temple. "A tragic accident, ruled so by your own department. A ruling you orchestrated." The two bodyguards tensed, their hands subtly moving towards their jackets. The journalist wasn't just investigating your campaign's finances, were they? They were digging into the source of those funds. A ripple went through the small crowd. The customs officer paused their conversation. The journalist was about to publish everything. Only the ramblings of a disgraced man. "Oh, but I do," you said, a grim smile touching your lips. The journalist had a dead man's switch. A series of encrypted files, timed to release if they went silent for too long. They reached out to a trusted colleague, a former editor, before their death. That editor, terrified, held on to them. "They remembered my initial investigation, the one you had buried." You paused, letting the weight of your words settle. The journalist's random act of violence? It was an enforcer, paid by the organization, directed by them, to retrieve those files. They failed. The journalist, even in their last moments, ensured the truth would find its way out. The politician's face was now a mask of barely controlled fury, their public persona cracking under the strain. "This is slander. A desperate attempt to derail a legitimate campaign. Is it slander to say that the journalist's final notes detailed how you..." The politician signed off on the transfer of protected land for a mining project that directly benefited the mastermind's shell company, you challenged. Your voice unwavering. "Is it slander to reveal the coded messages found in the journalist's apartment, detailing a meeting between you and the mastermind? Just hours before the journalist's murder, discussing containment strategies?" The mastermind's calm facade finally fractured. A subtle tremor ran through their hand. "But you were ready. You had anticipated this. They detail everything. Every transaction, every dirty deal, every name." The bodyguards hesitated, caught between protecting the politician and apprehending you. They knew the game was up. The public, the customs officer, the reporter, they were all witnesses now. The truth, like a persistent virus, had found its way into the bloodstream of the world. You had not secured an arrest, not yet, but you had ripped back the veil, exposing the rot beneath the polished surface. The fight was far from over, but the first, crucial blow had been struck. The world shatters around you in a tableau of frozen motion, then erupts. His bodyguards, sleek suits, and predatory eyes hesitate, their training warring with the sudden, undeniable chaos you've unleashed. Their gaze flicks between the politician, now a figure of exposed vulnerability, and you, the disruptor in the heart of their meticulously guarded fortress. The mastermind's eyes, a moment ago so placid, now burn with an inferno of cold, terrifying rage. You see it, raw and incandescent, a silent acknowledgement that the intricate game they played, the one that wove threads of power and death, has finally come undone. The public, the customs officers, the unsuspecting travelers, all are now witnesses. But it's too late. You are already moving, a blur of purpose honed by years of waiting, of planning, of a singular, driving need for truth. Your hand, steady as a surgeon's, plunges into the inner pocket of the mastermind's tailored jacket. There, nestled against a silk lining, is a small, encrypted data chip, the final piece of the puzzle you've hunted across a decade. His eyes, wide and bloodshot, dart around, seeking an escape that no longer exists. They move with practiced efficiency, their hands finding wrists, their voices calm but firm. The politician, his presidential ambitions now a mockery, is led away, his protests fading into impotent murmurs. The mastermind, however, offers no resistance. The face of the murdered journalist, bright and unyielding in her youth, flashes across screens, juxtaposed with the now detained politician. The carefully constructed facade of the campaign, of the entire network of influence and deceit, crumbles in real time. You watch as people gasp, point, their faces a mixture of horror and dawning comprehension. The journalist, whose life was so cruelly extinguished, whose name was almost forgotten, is suddenly, violently, remembered. Her story, twisted and buried for so long, is finally roaring back to life, a testament to the truth she died pursuing. The weight of those words, the acknowledgement of a decade-long quest, settles on your shoulders. But the triumph is not clean. It carries the metallic tang of blood, the bitter taste of lost time. You look down at your hands, still faintly trembling, and see not the hands of a victor, but the hands of a man who has wrestled with ghosts for too long. The air is thick with the aftermath, the lingering scent of fear, the buzz of shocked conversation, the flashing lights of arriving emergency services and media vans. You are Marcus Thorne, no longer disgraced, but profoundly changed. You have delivered justice, yes, but the echo of the battle will forever resonate within you. The fight is over, but the processing, the true reckoning, has only just begun. His bodyguards, sleek as sharks in their dark suits, hesitate, their predatory instincts momentarily disarmed by the sheer audacity of your move. Then, the world exhales. A cacophony erupts, a tangle of shouts and gasps. The politicians' handlers surge forward, a frantic wave attempting to shield their principal, but the damage is done. Your voice, amplified by the unexpected mic you'd snatched, still echoes, the damning words hanging heavy in the cavernous space. He knew. He ordered it. The journalist's death was no accident. You stand amidst the chaos, a solitary figure against the backdrop of bustling travelers now frozen into an audience. There is no surprise there, only a simmering, lethal rage. He lunges, a blur of tailored cloth and brute force, but you anticipate it. Years of instinct, honed in alleys and interrogation rooms, guide your body. This is the event. Not a single punch, but a dismantling of power through exposure. The words, the evidence you've just projected onto the large customs screen, a grainy, time-stamped image from an old surveillance feed, digitally enhanced to show the politician's car at the journalist's last known location, hours before the official timeline, are the true weapons. A ripple of murmurs spreads through the crowd, growing into a tide of outrage. Uniformed airport security personnel, initially stunned, begin to converge. Their movements are hesitant, caught between the authority of the politician and the undeniable truth now laid bare before them. You watch the politician's face, stripped of its public veneer. The carefully sculpted smile is gone, replaced by a raw, desperate fear. He tries to speak, to bluster, but his words catch in his throat, choked by the sudden weight of public scrutiny. Then, a voice cuts through the din, clear and commanding. Detain them. All of them. You turn, and there, threading through the bewildered onlookers, is the lead detective on your old case. His gaze meets yours, a silent acknowledgement of the path you've walked, the justice you've clawed back. They move with purpose, encircling the politician and his entourage. This is the reveal/discovery. The image on the screen, a ghost from the past, proves irrefutable. The timeline you'd painstakingly reconstructed, dismissed as conjecture years ago, now clicks into place with devastating finality. Your initial instincts, once ridiculed, now blaze with vindication. The politician, his face ashen, attempts one last desperate plea, a whimper for his lawyers, for his campaign. But the words are lost in the rising tide of public indignation. The customs area, usually a gateway to new beginnings, becomes an inescapable cage. You watch as they are led away, their power evaporating with each measured step towards the waiting law enforcement. A quiet satisfaction settles in your chest, not a triumphant roar, but a deep, resonant calm. The lead detective approaches, his expression unreadable. His eyes hold a glint of respect. You always did have a flair for the dramatic, Marcus. You offer a wry smile. Some things never change. No, he agrees, a pause hanging between you, some truths just take longer to surface. He looks at the retreating figures, then back at you. The journalist's files. The ones you found in the underground bunker. They're providing the final links to the organization. A network far deeper than we imagined. This is just the beginning of dismantling it. You nod, the weight of that realization settling. One battle won, but the war for justice, against the insidious reach of power, continues. Your part in this specific chapter, however, feels complete. The burden of failure, the gnawing doubt that had corroded your spirit, has lifted. The badge may still be gone, but the purpose, the unyielding drive for truth, remains. Travelers, still buzzing with the spectacle, begin to move again, their journeys resumed. You turn, leaving the unfolding arrests behind. The scent of jet fuel and distant possibilities fills the air. What lies ahead is uncertain, a canvas unpainted, but for the first time in a long time, Marcus Thorne, you feel a quiet, unwavering sense of purpose, a determined step towards a future you are finally free to define.